All right. So taking just any easy stance for a baseline scan, how you feel in your body and your breath and your energy level, where your awareness goes in the body, and see if you can invite it into the places that are less obvious. And we'll start with a little shake as we do. And notice how your shake might change day to day with things like sleep and what's going on in your life and your schedule. But we're always looking for moving the jiggle, the oscillation all through the body. Where I am, it's a little extra cold today. So this is one of the easiest ways to get a little rise in body temperature before we do anything. And if it's really cold where you are, you might want to go faster. And we're going to play with our orientation to gravity, move that jiggle around the back body, the front body. Play with bending at the elbows and feel how there's a different action on the pendulum of your arms, and you might feel your wrists and your fingers a bit more. And really be in your own timing. I'm a suggestion box. Maybe take your arms out and up above and still be easy in translating that bounce. See if you can get a bit into the shoulder blades, under your wings for a little space in our breath. Deep breath. I let out a sigh. Maybe a little alternating. And then making sure we have some shake down into our leg, maybe holding on for balance. And playing with different angles, like almost it's falling out of your hip. Mhm. Both legs in your own timing. Aware how the rest of the body adjusts. Last few moments anywhere that hasn't quite gotten the shake yet. And as you slow down when you're ready, just one breath to feel what that did for you. And then let's warm up our hands. I'm so ready for spring, but we're going to make our own heat now. I'd imagine that your hands are an extension of your heart, so full of love. We're just going to give a little sweep of the body, and you can be kind of in the space energetically, or you can really touch and scrub, and really you decide that. We'll do this a few times and make our way through the whole body. It doesn't have to be symmetrical. Maybe one side at a time. Even just that friction in our hands warms up upstream, our shoulders. Two more. Finding that we can give some touch to every place. So whatever hasn't been touched. Noticing some places want a lighter touch. Some places want that squeegee and scrub. And have a moment just to feel what that did for you. So before we make our way down to the floor, which is going to be very simple today, I want us to play with what it's like to turn or roll. So we're going to be playing with some seated rolls. Technically, it's a roll. It's a very broad category. So if we were rolling the body from here, I would lean towards one foot and kind of cross and change. Super simple. I want to see if we can find this leaning, almost like we're pouring our spine into the leg that's in that direction. And then we kind of continue and we pour our spine into the leg that's receiving us. You might not even need to think about it that much. But see if you can feel the little bit of weight shift inside. And it could be a back and forth, or you could continue if you have longer space in your room. And there's this quality of a little tiny bit of a side bend or an incline. And then it may not roll exactly like in one direction, but we can kind of take that patterning and step in all kinds of different directions. So, instead of being more of a linear space, I'm kind of rolling around or turning around in one area, or it can even like move me in sort of all directions. We could go very slow and soft for just like 10 more moments. See if you can feel this pattern of leaning towards the support, which is always shifting, always changing. If for any reason you're getting dizzy, go slow and maybe 20% turns, quarter turns with your eyes more up, really feeling your feet and looking at the space. Notice your breath for the last few. How can it be a whole body pouring sweetly? And yeah, the rest of your upper body can express or keep it just resting. And then without anything abrupt, we're just going to kind of make that smaller and more underneath us, more centered until we come back to some place that we started. All right. We're going to make our way down to the ground, which is always an opportunity. And this idea of leaning towards the support can be a helpful one. Don't overthink it. Feel free to use furniture that might be the mid-level. But if I lean towards my support and then I change my support, I can lean to that. It could take more steps than my example as well. We're just going to start in a cross-legged sit with your legs kind of out in front of you so you can move them. So we're not pulling them in tight. And we could have a little bit of a rocking side to side. So we'll take the same pattern and lean from inside your spine. Just lean almost like you're listening to the floor and lean more onto one hip and maybe one hand. Just that. And try it 2 more times this side, playing with where your hand goes, where it feels really easy, and how your torso leans. Does it also want to look down, or does it want to listen to the side? And then let's switch the leg in front and try the other side. We're just trying to make this transition as sweet and shared as possible. So it's not clunky, not abrupt. And then we're going to go back and forth. So I can lean with either leg in front. If it's a lot for the brain, do whatever you find yourself doing. And if we can, we're going to lean with the lower leg and switch so that we can lean with the lower leg on the other side. And we're going to notice the contact on the floor. So when you're on the side, we're really on the side of the thigh. And when we come back, try to find a cushiony ramp, a cushiony spot to go, which might be a little bit behind your sit bones. In a sense of volume or sphere rather than straight over the top. It's a little bit kind of rocking back. And how simple and easy can you make it? And how much can you be curious about the shared support that's always changing, always leaning towards it. So it's a little bit side and a little bit forward. Nice and easy in your upper body and your breath. Nice. One more each side. And then we're going to take this to one side. We have a foot and a hand on the floor. Come on to those and shift to hands and knees. Hopefully that felt like a reasonable place to continue to go. And from our hands and knees, we're really stable with these 4 points. And we're going to add this lean as if it's a C shape of our spine. I'm going to keep turning to show from different places, but I can side bend my whole spine. So it's like my tail and my head wag and feel a little shift of the weight in my 4 points on the floor. And as I wag to right now, my right, I'm going to let myself pour into the arm and leg that's on that side. And then I'm going to come back. So similar when we were standing, we're thinking of pouring into our support. Now we're closer to the ground. I'm going to side bend like I'm listening to my tail and pour into the arm and the leg that's on the ground. Let my body roll open. So this is kind of a roll on top of our limbs. Side bend, pour, just notice, and come back. Side bend, pour, and come back. Couple more. If it's a lot on the knees, see if you can find some padding around you. We won't be on them for a terribly long time, but a little bit. And see if it can again be shared, collaborative. And then on the next side, pause for a moment. And it's not about looking the same way, but let's see if you landed with one foot and one hand on the floor, and they happen to be the opposite hand and foot on the floor, and push a little bit on them so the bottom leg gets a little bit lighter, so that knee gets a little break. And then come on back down. And we feel this wag of the tail, listen to the tail, side bend, pour into the arm and leg on the floor, and then feel your hand and foot push a little bit so your bottom knee gets lighter, it gets a little break. So let's add that little piece for a few rounds. So we have this side bend leaning into the supports. Stand on your foot and hand. Bottom knee is a little bit light. And then come back. Leaning and pouring into the ground, into your foot. Knee soft. One more each side. And if you wanted to get more oomph, you could push really hard through your hand and foot and start to feel that work into your core. You don't have to, but it's an option. And lean and pour. And then sit back for a moment and give your wrists some circles, wiggle your fingers in that. Find the reverse, whatever you did. Fireworks for the wrists, shake them off. And a little wave, wave. Reverse, a little dive. So we're going to put those things together. Feel free to go with me or watch once. We're going to roll from a sit to fours to a sit. And we're going to see if we can keep finding this leaning towards a support. So wherever you want to start, but I'm going to show a lean. I have this opposite-handed foot. I'm going to use them to fours. And I'm going to just keep going the same direction. So I lean the other way. I use my hand and foot to lighten my bottom leg and sit. We made it. Let's reverse. Lean towards your hand. Use the opposite hand and foot to come to all fours. So a little moment there. And then side bend to the other side, leaning into the other set. And come on down. We're going to play with this. You could continue in the same direction or go back and forth. I'm going to go back and forth just to stay on the screen here. And keep looking for how it can feel easy and distributed. So nothing is too clunky. You can rest in certain places. And that we're like turning the volume up when you don't want anyone to notice, really slowly making the change of where the weight is. Maybe two more. Notice your breath. And again, if you want some more oomph, you could just push down super strong. Nice, looking great. If there's other spontaneous moments, find them, follow them. And then come to sit, shake out your wrists a little bit. We're going to add one more option here. And that is to maybe even stay off the knees. And one more detail is that as we're turning towards the ground and away from the ground, our arm and hand and shoulder will be happiest if we don't get stuck with it too far behind. So there's a timing and a transitional space. I don't want us to think too hard, but let's just watch really quick. If I continue and I leave my hand there too long, it's going to feel a little bit overstretched or stuck. So there's a certain timing where if I feel my other support, I can move away, take my arm off before I turn. And depending on your surface, you could also let your hand spin with you. Think of your fingers pointing in the direction of your face. And then the other option is we can let our knees not even touch the floor. Aha. So maybe it's my thigh for a moment and I can sit. Maybe I just pass through the all fours, the quadruped on my toes, but I sit. So my sit is my rest. And these are all variations of rolls. So have a moment to play with what feels interesting to you. Maybe it's even just the tipping side to side, and we don't have to go all the way. Really feeling this coordination of switching the contralateral or the opposite hand and foot sides. And where there's a sense of working more and more, and then less and less and less and less and less and less and less. And it's really all from the lean, from the center of us into the ground. Let yourself have a little bit of permission to improvise. If anything interesting starts to come, don't stop it. Notice you can change direction at any point. You can change direction right in the middle of a shift. And you're breathing and smiling on the inside at least, maybe on the outside as well. Last 5 moments. Without thinking of a certain place to land, I want you to see where your body wants to take just a moment of rest, whether that's seated or child's pose or even on the floor. Notice how you feel. I feel surprisingly warm. This is an interesting way to work strength that feels less effortful than a lot of the ways we think of. Notice what you feel for a breath. Shake out your hands. We're going to try the same thing a little bit higher up. And you're always welcome to stay with anything that has happened so far. From something like downward dog. And I say something like because Oftentimes we think of down dog as not moving, right, as one place. So let's imagine it's just 1 degree of this roll. And it's the same thing as our quadruped with the knees off the floor, but now we're just a little bit higher up. So if we take the same idea of leaning from our wagging the tail, listening to the tail, leaning, oh, we have the same opposite-handed foot. I just have a bigger distance to let myself descend, roll through the sit, and then to come back towards our down dog, I think of really pouring my head into my hand. As the head goes down, the tail goes up. And we can continue one direction, or we go back and forth. This one I especially love because you start to get a stretch all through the torso, wrapping from the side to the back, into the hamstrings. I like to experience this, the quality of yawning. Doesn't have to be that way. I rest when I'm down on the ground, and then I push and yawn and stretch to come up. We're still really rolling through the space. Yeah. And it might not look anything like down dog anymore. And you might find an ability to even move a little bit more through the space with like an extra step to change your orientation. So we're in the realm of crawling and a really sweet coordination of the upper body, the lower body, changing directions, proprioception, the right and the left. Keep going for 2 more. Knowing that there's an infinite way to riff here like a jazz musician. Yeah. And the next time you come to a seat, let's give both wrists and ankles circles, all 4 paws, both directions. And then anything that feels like you don't usually do it. So any kind of wiggling and random movement. Variety is the biggest medicine. And let's go ahead and sit with our legs kind of extended. So somewhere easy, rather than like really together, really apart, just kind of easy. From here, return to our first leaning sit. We're going to lean, and as we lean, let that knee bend and your arm bend so that we find the pinky finger side. Sometimes it helps to make fists and hit them together to wake that up. It's like karate chop side. And we're going to pivot there to bring our elbow to the floor and see if we can lean on the outside of the arm and the outside of the leg. And our spine's kind of leaning that way too. And then to come up, we push with the hands, stretch our leg, and come back up. Just that. Same principle, adding a little more of almost like we're bringing everything closer on this side. Then we can lean on the forearm and on the thigh, like I'm completely on the thigh. My pelvis is actually not bearing any weight. And then I push off the hand and stretch my leg. How sweet can that be? Lean, bringing everything close. So we're making a support for our body to lean into. Push and extend. Start from the spine, and the body organizes to kind of catch it underneath. With some space. Not a very effortful elongation, but we're definitely not getting too small. One more. If you ever need to catch yourself, actually let's do one more each time. The outside of the body has more resilience to deal with force coming in. So you can feel like that's pretty solid, feels hopefully pretty comfortable. So we could put this in a little bit of the value of what if I fall? Right? Let's see if we can take that all the way to the ground. So, same beginning, same thing. And now I'm going to think of a fetal position and I'm going to roll onto my back. And let's just get there, feel the ground. That's a way to ramp ourselves down. Let's stretch our arms overhead so our big X marks the spot. And then pull the right arm and leg in and side bend like we did before to the right as you stretch the left. And if you do that a lot, you might start to roll over. If you don't, it's okay for now. And then come back into our X. And switch. We're going to pull the left side in, the arm, the leg, the whole side, like you're scrunching it up and push and reach the right side long. And it might roll you over. And then we'll let ourselves come back. Try that again. So we have this pull and push, developmental pattern of body half that helps to have the side bend in our spine. And come back to your back. You could also think of it from the spine. So initiation is our own delineation. And if you do have a friction, like the carpet, just be careful of your hair. Let this feel good, like a big yawning feeling. Rest for a moment in the X. We're going to weave this with how we just came down. So if we pull the right side together, scrunch it up, shorten your spine on that side, stretch the left side, and roll over to like a half fetal position. Let's keep rolling so that our torso's over our arm and leg, and we can kind of ramp up to push. There's lots of places to land. Maybe we'll land in a half straddle for now. And then rewind. Lean into our fetal position. Let's sweep the left arm overhead to get that long open body, and then come back into the X. From here, change. Pull the left side together, scrunch it up, stretch your right away, and then keep rolling until you feel you're over your arm and leg, and you can kind of ramp up to a half straddle. And then side bend, lean into our fetal position. Stretch your right arm over the top and roll onto your back. Take a breath. Notice how that went. On a smaller level, each shift of contact to the floor is pouring into a new support. Sometimes it's called a rolling point of contact. We could think of the fluid body, like liquid in our body shape, moving into a new place. Let's do the same thing with feeling like each time we pour, it's really soft and round. So we'll scrunch the right side up, stretch the left side, and feel what you're rounding into the ground. And then I'm going to kind of pour over my arm. And I think of a ramp as I come up, and now my support is on my pelvis and my legs. And then let's ramp down. So we'll come down the front a little bit. So it's even easier to roll onto the leg, onto the arm. Circle the left arm around. And then how can we round and be soft to come back to the X? Other way, scrunch the left side, stretch the right, like a big, big yawn. Feel the rolling onto your arm, onto your leg. Head forward to make it a ramp. And then ramp down by leaning forward over your leg, sharing with the arm, and right arm comes over the head. Let's go again to the right. We're going to add a little different way seated. Same beginning, scrunch the right, stretch the left, pour. And now when we start to come up, push onto your arm and stretch your leg up and come all the way up to sit. Let's go down the other way. So we've been here before. Lean to the left and let the leg fold with you. Lean forward over that leg so it's really easy to stretch your right arm overhead. I change dimensions, directions. We're going to come into our X. Let's rewind from there. Scrunch your left side. Roll forward, pouring over the support, leaning over the support. Push into your arm and stretch your leg out. Keep going, lean to the right. Pour everything underneath you into the fetal position and circle your arm overhead to make the X. It looks like we made it. Let's rewind again. If you have the space, you can continue in the same direction. Squeeze to the right, stretch to the left, pour over the support, pour over the support. Push your arms, stretch your leg. Keep the lean changing to the left and bend everything underneath you. Pour into the support. Sweep around to the X. Let's change directions down here in the X and squeeze the left, stretch the right. Pour over the support. Push your arms, stretch your leg to switch the lean and switch the bend. Yeah. Beautiful. Come down to the X. Let's stop in the seat. So we'll do the same thing to come up to our seat. And push. Okay. Notice how you feel. Any big questions? Looks like it's what I can see, which is not everything. Looks pretty good. I want to add how we can kind of weave these together for a little play and exploration. We have just a little lean from the sit. We have lean down to the forearm. There's a little element, but I'll save it for a moment. We have lean from the sit to our hands and knees, or hands and toes. We'll put those really close to each other. We have rolling sit to quadruped. I'm going fast, don't need to go this fast. We have the rolling higher quadruped, down dog. And we can think of it as whenever I'm facing the sky or facing the floor. And so when we're on the ground, our sitting is kind of facing the sky. We're still facing the sky. Our transition is a little bit of facing the ground. And we can transition through all of these levels just with our lean. And we can also change direction at any point. Just to say that you don't have to make it all the way to the symmetrical point. You could be halfway through and decide to step and change direction. One little element that is helpful when we are anywhere lower than the quadruped, so when we're sitting or we're kind of in this halfway point, is the counter weight of a limb and your spine. So it's much easier for me to find that downward direction when my leg is a counterweight back there. If my leg was up here, it's so much weight, it's going to be much faster. Sometimes we don't need to even presence that, but if you start to play, maybe you'll feel that reach away actually helps make it a smoother ramp. So let's just take a minute or two to play, maybe with one phrase, one back and forth that we've already done. If you feel like weaving those together, feel free to play. And all that we're working with is leaning towards the support, leaning towards the support, and the lean changes. So even when the whole body's on the floor, I'm leaning towards the future support. And this translates into really feeling that we can adapt when we're off our support in, a surprising moment in life. So give yourself a little bit of play. What feels good? What feels interesting? How can you make it even easier? And keep thinking, even in the microscopic, it's like a fractal. How can you lean towards the support to make it easier? Finding the soft, round places of connection to the ground. If you want more zhuzh, you can always push more for more action. If you want more release, less push. When in doubt, simplify. And imagine that you're just observing patterns that are already inside without the mind in the driver's seat. Mind is in the passenger seat of like a scenic bus tour. uh-huh. About halfway through exploration. Other things might arise that we haven't even played with. If you're pouring and you're observing your body being comfortable, you'll be in a safe place. Just the last moments. Notice if you end up in the same pattern or the same direction, and just see what might be nearby that you haven't visited to open up the possibilities for our body-mind coordination, to watch out for getting stuck in any ruts. The body is so our way in to change the ruts of our nervous system, of our mind, of our heart. If you're loving this, you do not ever have to stop. And somewhere, if we're going to come together in the next 4 or 5 breaths, let's roll our way onto our side. And for this one, maybe we'll have our arm stretched out like a pillow. You could be like a lounging mermaid. And we're just going to free the top leg, just in case we got any, bony pressure on the ground. Imagine this leg is seaweed deep in the ocean. Just let it be completely in the artistic, fluid space, which might discover moments of hold or stretch, or just completely let it go. Feel your support underneath you. So for me, that bottom leg is bent. It gives me a little more base to play with my top leg. And that top leg might also ripple through the spine. Doesn't have to. Let's play with the top arm too. Maybe it's like a ballast to stretch away from the leg. Maybe it wants to. So I'm just working with my mic here and my shirt. Maybe it wants to play as well. Like this whole upper side of the body is just finding its instinctual stretch. Open in all directions, above, out to the side, forward and back. And just observe how they're communicating to each other, this whole side. And then pour yourself onto your back and just feel the right and the left. Pour yourself to the other side. I'm going to switch around because I'm running into the wall. Let's see ya. Maybe we have the long arm. Let's just start with the leg. Maybe it's so soft and simple. Maybe it's starting to really swirl and yawn all the way out to your toes, pausing or flowing, feeling your way into what's so much the treasure of connecting to our instinct, spontaneous. In yoga, we call it sahaja. Once we really tune into the body to listen, we find this spontaneous arising of what's needed. Stay with the leg or add to your arm and see how they naturally flow together. Stretch away from each other. If you feel any yawns, let them happen. That's unwinding deep in your nervous system. So nice. We don't have to actually know what is unwinding. Something is. And then when you're satisfied, feel the pouring onto your back. And wherever you like to be, wide arms and legs. Arms can be higher than the heart, lower than the heart. Just feel a moment of, even here, we are leaning into the support, just straight down, really giving in to the attraction of gravity. Noticing where the breath is moving. Let your mind follow the edge of the breath movement in your body. See if you can follow the edge of the breath movement without impacting it, without pushing it, without any muscular effort, just observing and relaxing anything that's holding the edge back. See if you can relax the skin around your eyes into the support, into the ground, into the downward flow of gravity. And the skin around your temples. Even the skin around your skull. And your jaw. And the base of the skull. And then the tissue of the whole body, all the muscles. all of the more fluid organs and the fluids that are circulating, feel them all descend into the support of the earth. And you're welcome to rest as long as you like in your own home. We are in the new moon window, the lunar new year tomorrow, time of rest. We might be closer to the ground and closer to the new moon in our weekly flow. And if you're feeling that pull inwards, it's always a good thing to say yes. And whenever you're ready to come out, let's feel like we can take ourselves all the way up to standing, pouring into the support. It starts so slow and so gentle. You might have another yawn. And you might have some pauses along the way. So might be some familiar places. Might think a little bit in certain moments. Where's the next support I can pour into, leaning into? Where's the next support? Maybe use furniture supports. Maybe it takes a while. Let's feel that even here standing, we can have this little bit of sharing. And a little tidbit you can take with you is that if you ever needed to be still for a little while or in one place, even a little tiny leaning shares that effort and makes it easier to be there. So even here, it's so small you might not even see it. It's just sweep it up, inhale, get really big, feel your feet on the earth. Feel the whole body has had this connection, upper to lower, right to left, back to front. And then we'll smooth it out, dropping the hands, dropping our awareness down. My assistant has arrived to say, have a good day. Happy New Year.